Macarthur Street or Burke Street. Mendelssohn's the photographer that was in Melbourne. They hung in that window for a long, long time.
Who's the photo of up here, Gwen?
Mm-hmm.
Who's the photo up here?
Who's that photo?
Yeah.
My mother.
It's your mother. And the other one was your father?
Yeah. They don't belong to me, they belong to Betty Empson.
Tell us about the clock on the mantelpiece behind you, Gwen.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the clock on the mantelpiece.
The clock.
Mm.
Well, it belonged to Mum. It was given to my mother for a wedding present by her uncle, who won it for a rifle shooting competition.
Right.
Somewhere over in Adelaide. Where? Glenelg, possibly. That was where they lived.
When would they have been married?
Mm-hmm.
When would they have been married? What year?
Who?
Your parents?
Round about 18. I'll tell you exactly.
Okay.
From
What are you looking at there, Gwen?
by Meyer Fromberg. April the 10th, 1895. So they'd have been married in 1895 because that was a wedding present from a jeweller. You wouldn't pick up the engraving on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that's.
So that was one of the wedding presents, and the
That
other
was a
one.
wedding present. Yeah, 1895.
And the other wedding present was the clock on the mantelpiece.
The clock, yes.
Yeah. Where were they married?
In Sale.
They were. Oh.
They were married in a house
Mm-hmm.
where Pat Bergen's living now.
Yeah.
But don't ask me who lived there because I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was where they were married.
Right. And you didn't live in Sale when you were born?
No, I lived in Traralgon.
Right.
Born in Traralgon.
Oh, yeah. Ah. So what was the reason that your parents were married in Sale but they then didn't continue to live in Sale?
Because my father was on the railways.
Uh-huh.
And I suppose he was transferred to Traralgon.
Uh-huh.
He was an engine driver.
Oh, yeah. And what was your mother a local Sale girl at that stage?
She was working here in Sale, I presume. Don't know.
Oh.
Didn't know a thing. I presume. And in those days, you didn't ask a lot of questions.
Yeah,
About your past lives or that sort of thing. We don't know a lot about our grandparents, apart that they were born in England, came to Australia. My mother was born in England, and their parents died when the children were very young, and she came to Australia with her aunt and uncle and lived in Adelaide.
Right. So your grandparents actually came from England to Adelaide, but they were sort of...
No, my grandparents. We never ever, apart from my father's parents, we never ever met my mother's parents because they'd passed away when she was just a little girl.
Oh, yeah.
But my father's parents were English, came to Australia.
Yeah, that's your father's parents, and your father was born in Australia?
My father was born in Sale.
In Sale. Awesome. I didn't realise where the Sale connection came from in the family, but obviously. Yeah. And
but don't ask me how my grandfather came to Sale, but I would just presume that he was on the railways, and I suppose he was sent to Sale.
Yeah. Sale would have been a pretty hard place and a hard life in those days, I would have thought.
I suppose so. I wouldn't know anything about it.
Yeah. So you were born in Traralgon and then went to Melbourne?
Yeah, we were all born. The three girls were born in Traralgon.
Mm. Who was the eldest? What was the order of the girls?
Doris was the oldest, then Una, and myself. I was the youngest. There was only three girls.
Yeah. And can you tell us about your early days from Traralgon through to Melbourne? What recollections you have of that time? Preschool days, almost.
I didn't start school till we went to Benalla. Yes, I started school at Benalla. At Traralgon, I would be too young to go to school here, I suppose.
Yeah. So your father was based in Sale and then Traralgon, and then later at Benalla.
Benalla, Dalesford, Shepparton, North Melbourne, and then to South Melbourne.
Yeah. Where did you live in Melbourne?
In Melbourne?
Yeah.
North Melbourne.
All of the time in North Melbourne?
North Melbourne and South Melbourne.
So you moved between those two suburbs?
Yeah.
Did your parents own a house in Melbourne, or were they railway houses? And
No, had our own home.
Yeah.
Nelson Road.
Nelson Road in North
South Melbourne.
South Melbourne. Be worth a few dollars now.
Yeah.
That's one of the most.
We, Betty and your mum and myself went out one Sunday afternoon, and we went to see a house that the gas company had done up. It was a two-storey house, and it was right opposite where I used to live. Now I forget who bought that place. Your mum will remember. He was one of the big tennis players.
Yeah.
And I looked around and I said, "Oh, that's where I used to live." So your mum and Bet said, "Oh, we'll go and have a look." So we went over and had a look. And your mother said, "Go and ask them if we can see through it." And I said, "I won't do anything of the sort." She said, "We'd love to have a look through." Well, I said, "Go and ask yourself." I said, "I'm not going." So she said, "Well, knock on the door and say, 'Look, I lived here at one time. Would you mind if we had a look through the house?" And I said, "I wouldn't go and do anything like that." And I said, "Go and do it yourself."
Especially when you're talking about pre-First World War.
Yeah. So we walked round it, and I said, "Oh, well, Gordon's lived in there, and went along places. But that, of course, had all altered when I lived down there.
Yeah. How many years did you live in South Melbourne? In that Nelson Street house, do you know?
No, I wouldn't know. I suppose could have been 10, could have been 6, I don't know. I was 18 when I left there.
Yeah. Were you, so from somewhere between 10 years of age and 18 years of age you were living there, or was it a bit younger that you moved there?
Well, I was 18 when I left Melbourne, came to Sale.
Yeah. Did you go to school in South Melbourne?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How you used to get to school? Tramming or?
No, we were very close to we lived near St Vincent Park, and the school was in St Vincent's Place.
Yeah.
So it was just sort of round the corner and through the park gate, and we were at school just near Bridport Street, which was the main street in Albert Park.
Yeah.
We went to the Albert Park School.
Yeah. And from the move back to Sale, was that another railway transfer for your father?
That was when the electric trains came into Melbourne, and my father was getting near the retiring age, and he didn't want to take on the electric trains. So there was a position for driver in charge at Sale, and he got the appointment. And, well, he was there till he retired.
And did the 3 girls come to Sale?
I was the only one that came in the first place.
Yeah.
I was told I had to come. I was 18.
Did you ever work in Melbourne?
I worked at Vaughan and Welsh's.
Did you?
Yes. And Una worked at Vaughan and Welsh's, and Dot was a milliner at Brooks, McGlashan's and Macarthur in Flinders Lane. And they were allowed to stay on, but seeing I was the youngest, I had to do as I was told. And I had to come to Sale.
Did you resist?
Oh, I don't remember. No, you didn't. If you were told, your parents told you were going to do a thing, you did it. It was never queried. In those days. It's altogether different now. You couldn't imagine an 18-year-old girl just told that, well, you're coming to Sale, and that was it. I just came.
And where did you live when you came to Sale?
In Macarthur Street.
Yeah. Near this house?
Near this house.
Yeah.
2 blocks. I've only lived in Macarthur Street. When we came to Sale, we lived on the corner of Macarthur and Market Street. Well, then my parents bought a house in Macarthur Street, the next block down. Then we bought a block of land, which was this block of land, and built a house on it. And I've been in it ever since.
Yeah.
So I've only lived in Macarthur Street
Yeah.
all the years I've lived in Sale.
How old were you when you got married?
22.
So, and you obviously met my grandfather here.
You what?
You met my grandfather here in Sale.
Met him, I joined the choir at the church. He was in the choir, and that was really how we met.
Yeah.
It was through the choir.
And you both obviously were very active in the church for a long period of time.
Oh, I wasn't so active, but your grandfather was.
Yeah.
But,
Was that something that was, because he was working, first of all, from a fairly large family and working a business or a variety of businesses around Sale, I think was, were most people fairly heavily involved in the church at that time?
They were farmers, the Glovers were farmers out of the heart. And then when they sold the farm, they had a hay and corn store in Raymond Street and a wood yard. And then from that, my mother-in-law had a little shop, a florist shop, where she sold all sorts of things. And from there we went into the films,
Right.
into the pictures. There was a picture theatre.
And so, having met in the choir at the church, for how long were you engaged? A short period of time or a long period of time?
How long were we engaged? I don't know, forget. About 18 months, I suppose.
Yeah.
Couldn't say exactly, but it'd be about 18 months.
Yeah. Why was my grandfather called Jack?
Because one of his uncles, when he went into the hospital when he was born, Uncle Ned Glover called him Jack, and the name stuck to him.
So as a youngster and right through, he was always just known as Jack.
He was always known, everybody. If you'd have called him Robert or Alex, he wouldn't have known you were talking to him, because everybody called him Jack.
When you married, was he operating his own business at the time, or was he working as part of the
No,
family?
he was working with his parents.
Right. Did he then set out on his own businesses after you were married?
Oh, well, the family was all involved. It wasn't entirely his business. The family was sort of all in it. It was a family business, really. But towards the end, he and his partner sort of took over.
Right. And that was, those businesses moved out of the farming area into the picture theatres. Was that the main business?
Yeah.
You said you built this house after you were married? Or that...
Before we were married.
Oh, is that right?
It was ready for us to go into when we were married.
Yeah.
Got through the savings bank and paid it off at 18 and 9p a week.
Yeah.
That was the rate that you paid it off.
Yeah. And what changes from the basic house? Things like the lighted section in the lounge room has always attracted the kids and amused them for years. Was that part of the house when it was built, or was that?
No, that was 2 rooms actually. It was a little sitting room and a kitchen. So it was 5 rooms.
This house was when it was first built?
When it was first built.
Oh, I see.
There was a bedroom, this room, the second bedroom, and the little dining room, and the kitchen. Of course, the toilet in those days were right away down the back of the yard. as the family grew, the house was enlarged.
Right. How long after you were married was Mum born? I can't remember her birthday.
How long was it?
Yeah.
9 months and a few days.
Yeah. And then the other boys were sort of all in fairly quick succession.
Yeah, well, Fred was born 13 months later. There was 13 months between your mother and Fred, and then I think there's about 3 years between the others.
Yeah. Yeah. Were they born in the Sale Hospital, I presume?
No, they were born in a private hospital.
Yeah.
Sister Thomas at a private hospital here in those days.
Yeah.
They were all born in the same hospital.
When Grandpa was building on the house, the back area, the sleep out and studio, was that always just a sleep out, or was it used as an office and other things as well?
That was his office, and Fred and Bruce slept over there.
Yeah.
And the other was they were called wash houses. They weren't laundries in those days, they were wash houses.
What was in the wash house? I remember that
A
was
copper.
all. Yeah.
And the troughs.
So you'd boil up, put a wood fire under the copper.
A wood fire, yeah.
Yeah.
There were no washing machines. And then there were the 2 single beds and the office.
The loft in the garage has been, again, a source of constant amusement to all the kids. Why was that built? What was the loft for?
Oh, I suppose just as a storage and a play, cubby house
Yeah.
type of thing it was used for.
Looks a bit sad now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. After Grandpa died, did you have any businesses before he died? Were you operating any business before he died? Because you had a shop afterwards.
No.
Or did you work in the shop? I can't remember.
Not afterwards, no.
There was a shop down in the main street that you were associated with. I just can't remember what.
With the what?
I can't remember whether it was a business that you were operating or.
I had a frock shop for a few years.
Did you?
In Raymond Street.
Yeah. Well, that would have been a bit of a challenge operating.
And that was where Fred and Jess had their jewellery shop. It was the same shop.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. What led you into that business?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose I was always a bit interested in business. I was in the sales before I was married. So I suppose it was just a bit of an interest.
I'd like to talk about Mum's growing up sort of years. She was schooled here, and did all the schooling here in Sale, didn't she?
Yeah, she started at the state school, and I think she was about 8 when she went to St Anne's.
Yeah.
And then that's where she finished at St Anne's.
She was a bit sporting at school.
She was pretty good at basketball. She wasn't much good at school.
I think she passed that on to some of her children.
She wasn't very interested in school. She could play the piano all right, she learnt music.
Who was the scholar?
Oh, none of them were outstanding, really.
Yeah. Bruce is the more.
But Bruce was more for figures.
Yeah.
But they all got their intermediate. That was as far as they went.
Yeah.
But their merit, I think it might have been, no,
Yeah.
it was merit in my day. Intermediate
Yeah.
they got, but
The house at Seaspray, was Seaspray always a holiday venue for your family?
not the present one. Uncle George's was always the holiday home
Right.
at Seaspray, till I bought that one.
Yeah. Well, how did you used to get down to Seaspray when you first started going there?
By car.
I seem to remember there was always a roadster in the garage outside.
Always a what?
A roadster, a sporty vehicle with a jump seat at the back.
Oh, that was
What was that?
Graham's.
In the shed out here, in your shed.
Oh,
There was a Studebaker sedan. Was there?
yeah, we had a Studebaker one time.
Was there one with a sort of a sports seat or a jump seat in the back?
Don't remember it.
Right. So the Studebaker.
We had the Studebaker.
Mm.
We had a Hillman. I think the Hillman's still up at Allen's. I think he might have it under one of his sheds up there.
Yeah. So the process of getting down to Seaspray would have been a fairly
Oh,
sort of
no worries. Not in my time, but in the other, it was always horse and buggy. People got to Seaspray. There weren't many houses there then.
Yeah.
They'd all pitch their tents. And when the ones that were already there would see them coming, and everybody jumped in and helped everybody put their tents up and all that sort of thing. It was just a little community of tents.
Yeah. And the house next to your house now, was that a Glover house, a general sort of communal house amongst the Glovers? Did everyone sort of base around that house?
Where Archie is, do you mean?
No, George's, the one that we termed George's
Oh,
house.
oh no, that was, well, the Glovers built that themselves,
Yeah.
and it was just used by the Glovers.
Yeah.
But previously to that, they had a house down in the township. They'd built a house there, and that was before my time. And they must have sold it
Mm.
and then built up along the foreshore.
Yeah.
And
So this is back in South Melbourne.
yeah, but that church was down, I don't know whether that would have been in the Port Melbourne area, St Barnabas. Oh, it could have been South Melbourne, but it was out down amongst all the factories.
Well, I think before we were interrupted, we were probably talking about life in South Melbourne.
Oh no,
I can't
we
remember
were
what
talking about the church
Yeah. In South Melbourne?
in South Melbourne.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
little mission church,
Yeah.
St Barnabas.
Yeah.
That's right. And then Auntie Dot was a very good pianist, and she played the piano. We had the girls' gymnasium club, and we used to compete in competitions in all different towns around the place, and we were a very good team. We got first prize many times, but our teacher was the physical culture for Merton Hill Girls Grammar School. We had a very good instructor.
Yeah. So this was a church
It was a church.
gymnasium?
It was a church team that we had. Yeah.
Was that like the calisthenics of more modern times?
Oh yes, it was marching and exercises and
That sounds
drills.
that sounds like calisthenics.
So, something like
Yeah.
calisthenics,
Yeah.
only not as much. Well, what would you say? Dancing action.
Yeah.
It was more exercise.
Well, who was in that team?
Oh, Auntie Dot was the pianist, and Auntie Una, and myself was in it.
Yeah.
And there were 8.
And what they
2,
used to
4,
have,
6, 8, 10. No, there must have been 10 of us.
they used to have championship or competitions
Competitions
around the suburbs of Melbourne.
around the suburbs of Melbourne. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So how would you'd be travelling all over Melbourne to get to them, would you? Or
yeah, we used to travel around. Oh, they had motor cars in those
train,
days.
yeah. Well,
Trains
what days are we talking about?
And
We're talking-
trains.
This is
Oh, they'd be the late 1920s.
yeah. What year were you born?
1901.
And you came to Sale when you were 18, so in 1919.
We came at the end of 1919.
To Sale.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, so was this the calisthenics or the gymnasium while you were living in Melbourne? That was before you came back to Sale that you were involved in that, or was this after?
No, this was before I came to Sale.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Auntie Dot was the pianist.
Got a medal somewhere. I wouldn't have a clue where it was. First prize, we all got medals. SBGC, that was St Barnabas Girls Club on it.
Yeah.
Oh no, we were a pretty good team. We were good. But we had a very good instructor.
Yeah. What are your memories of your father?
Well, we didn't see, not till he retired, when he was growing up, we didn't see a lot of my father because there was night shift. He'd be on night shift,
Yeah.
and he'd be sleeping when we'd be home,
Yeah.
or when he was home, we'd be away at school. But it wasn't until he retired that we really saw a lot of my father.
Yeah. Yeah. And was your mother working during that time, or was she full-time raising the children?
Oh no, she was at home all the time.
Yeah.
Married women didn't go to work in those days if they had a husband.
Yeah. The economy, I guess, wasn't too good in those. I mean, it's not as though
Oh Lord, no.
it was very wealthy.
I can remember my father bringing home his pay envelope, putting it on the table, and Mum would open it up, and we'd be standing looking, and we'd say, "Oh, look at all that money," and there'd be £8 in it, which was a fortnight's work.
Yeah.
For £8.10 a fortnight. It was £4.5 a week. My father got for 48 hours.
Yeah.
Well, when I was 21, I got 32 and 6 a week for 48 hours. That is $3.25
Yes.
for 48 hours. We worked from 9 till 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 9 till 10 on Friday nights.
It's your father was sort of buying and selling houses all the time with his moves, so obviously, it must have been the market was always there to be able to buy a place and to be able to sell a place.
Well, I don't know. In the very early days, they'd have been rented because, being on the railways, you wouldn't know when you'd get a shift.
Yeah.
But we were never in a railway house, never lived in a railway house.
Yeah.
So I'd say that my parents rented the houses, and it wasn't until we went to Melbourne that they bought a house.
Yeah. Were they, you said that your father was living in Sale before he was married. Did they meet?
He was born in Sale.
He was born in Sale, yeah. Did they meet in Sale? Did your parents meet in Sale?
Oh, I'd say so.
Yeah. Because your mother had her own family around the area.
Not round here. They were in South Australia. But how my mother came to Gippsland, we never knew, because you never asked your parents about those sort of things in those days.
What are your other sort of recollections of your father, apart from obviously the fact that he was working shifts a lot, and therefore, he would have been away a bit too, would he, with taking trains?
Well, we didn't see a lot of my father as children, because, well, we'd be sleeping when he'd be working, and when we were home, he'd be sleeping.
Yeah. Would you have classed your mum as a strong woman?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because she more or less had to rear us. We're the three girls on her own. Because my father was away all day and often away at night when he was on night duty, night work. And then when he'd be off, he'd be sleeping. But she had the running of everything.
Would she have been young when you were born?
Oh, I think I can remember my mother saying she was about 26, 27 when she was married.
Yeah. So. It's interesting to think about the sort of life that a person in your mother's era would have lived. The environment that they grew up in.
Well, yes, because we don't know much. We don't know much about that era, really. You've only got your memories from your own era. And it's hard to remember those at times.
Yeah. Was your mother strict with the children?
No, but we had to do as we were told. No, she wasn't. She wasn't strict, but bringing up children in those days is very different to what it is today. If your parents told you, you don't do that, you didn't do it. Or if you were told you can't go there, you didn't go.
Did you ever get a smack as a kid?
No. No, I don't think we... I can remember getting one smack across the ears. The only... the only one about... Oh... I suppose I'd have been about 15 at the time. I was getting growled at for doing something, and I was being sent. So you were sent to your bedroom.
Yeah.
If you were naughty, you would go to your bedroom.
Yeah.
And I was being sent to my bedroom, and my mother was still talking to me as I was walking away, and I was saying to myself, I thought, shut up, shut up. And the next thing I got this whack across the ears and pushed into the bedroom door. And as the door was closing, I heard my mum saying, "Oh, God forgive me for striking that child." Now that is something I've never forgotten, and it's a word I cannot stand, and none of my kids would have said shut up.
Is that right?
No way. There was one word they were never allowed. And I can remember that as plain as if it happened, and I thought I was saying it under my breath. See, I was saying, "Oh, shut up, shut up, shut up." And I got this whack across. That's the only whack I can remember being given. No, well, see, there were only the 3 girls in our family, and we always had to be quiet because of my father sleeping, but there was never a lot of noise in our house. We were all pretty quiet. But I can remember that whack across the ears. That's the only smack that I can ever remember getting.
Yeah. Who was the first married of the girls?
Auntie Una.
Mm. Did she come back to Sale at all? Did she live back in Sale?
No, they came back. They came back to Sale, I suppose about 2 months after I came.
Yeah. So this is after your parents came back here. Well, she was married when you left Melbourne.
Who?
Una was already married.
No. Oh no.
No.
No, they came back. They got homesick and wanted to come back to Sale. Oh no, there was none of us was married. I was about 18. Una would have been about 20, I suppose. Auntie Dodge would have been 22.
Yeah.
There's about 2 years odd between us.
Yeah. When did Auntie Dot meet Uncle Lyle?
When?
Here in Sale?
Well, I met Uncle Lyle had a very good voice. He was a very good singer.
Yeah.
And they had a sort of a choral society, I suppose you'd call it. All musicians got together, and Auntie Dot was the pianist, and Uncle Lyle was the singer, and they had other singers and that sort of thing in it. And that was how they met, really. It was through music.
Yeah. How did Uncle Lyle get on with your parents?
Oh, all right.
He was always a character.
Yeah. Oh no, they got on all right.
Did you used to have many family gatherings? The family dues, family social nights.
Yeah, we had a lot of social nights. Not so much after the family broke up when we were getting married, but when we were all home, we had lots of evenings up at my people's place. They were very big rooms, and we'd have a sing-song round the piano, for a while, and then they play charades, have different games, and then we'd go down. Grandma would be down making sandwiches and hot scones and that for supper, and we'd all sit round the table. And then another night we might all have playing cards.
Yeah.
All the entertainment was done in the homes in those days, because there was no television or anything like that, no wireless.
Yeah.
And there were about 9 or 10 couples all went about together, and we'd hire a motorboat. Harry Bott, we'd hire his motorboat, and we'd go down the river, go down onto the lakes somewhere, and take our lunch. But everybody stayed together. Nobody separated till it was time to come home. Everybody stopped together. And then perhaps the next month we'd hire a horse and drag, and we'd go up into the bush somewhere. And somebody would take some sort of a musical instrument, a mouth organ or something, and they'd have sing-songs. And then Auntie Dot bought a Decca. Gramophones came in, and that was the one with the big horn in those days. And then they brought in these little ones, and I think they were called Deccas. You sat down and you wound it out and put your record on, and Auntie Dot bought one of those, and gee, we thought that was, we were in the upper 10 class and we could take that on our Sunday trips, and we'd all buy a record. I think you paid 2 shillings for a record those days, and we thought that was just great to have that. But that was how we sort of spent our time, because there was no wireless, no television or anything like that. You made your own fun.
And Eunice came back to Sale, but then when she married went back to Nolan.
No, they lived in Sale for quite a while, and Uncle Jack was an insurance, he worked for the AMP, an insurance agent, and then he was moved to Traralgon, and from Traralgon went to Springvale.
Right. And then the family stayed around Springvale. Because
he joined the post office, PMG then.
Did Auntie Dot used to work?
Did she work?
Yeah.
She was a milliner.
I mean back in Sale.
In Sale,
she was.
She worked for Treloar's. She was their milliner.
And Uncle Lyle was working with Telecom or.
In those days he had a
office.
home corn store.
Is that right?
Round in York Street.
Yeah.
His father had the business really. When the father died, Lyle took over.
And so how long did he continue that business?
Oh, for quite a while. Then I think he sold the business and worked for Telecom.
Right. Did Auntie Dot used to play the piano around Sale?
Yes, we had community singing every Sunday night. She used to play for that, and I played for dances, that sort of thing. Played for years at Sea Spray.
Yes.
Oh yes, she did a lot of playing, and she'd play for different singers. She was a very good pianist, and but she never belonged to a band or anything like that. But she could. The singers liked her because she could transpose. If it was too high for them, she could bring it down for them, and it's not everybody that could do that. But if the music was in sharps, she could bring it down to flats.
What effect did the sort of depression have around the Sale area? The 30s depression on people like Lyle's business and on the Glovers' businesses. Did it have any effect?
That's the same as everywhere else. Everybody felt the depression. There wasn't any money around. You just made do with whatever you had.
Did it affect people's lifestyles greatly?
I think so. A lot of the farmers went broke through it, and at one time we were giving half our wages to Uncle Roy because he was farming at the time, and the farms were no good, and we were giving half of our wages to Roy because he was married and they had 2 children at the time. I think must have been Joycey came later. There was Norman and what was there 3? No, I think there was only the 2. And we gave them half of our salary. To live on. I think we were getting about £5 a week in those days. And 5. Well, I suppose we were living on about £2.10 a week.
Because this would have been just after you were married. I mean, within a few years.
Well, I suppose 10 years or so, I suppose could have been.
I was just sort of trying to place the dates. Mum was born in 1925, so the Depression years were sort of 28 through to 33 or so.
Yes, I know, they were...
well, that would have affected...
The shops all got they were badly off, because no one was buying clothes or that sort of thing, and everybody was handing down clothes, and you'd cut up things for your children, something you'd have given to you, you'd cut them up. And I know I made trousers for the boys out of trousers that were my dad's, but everybody was doing everyone was doing the same thing. We're all hand-me-downs. If you had something that you knew would fit somebody, you just took it along and gave it to them. That was just how people survived in those days.
And did Jack change his business activities during that time? Is that when?
No. That was during the hay and corn store days, when the farmers were all going broke.
So how would he have put in a normal sort of a work day back in the 30s?
Well, doing whatever you could do.
When did the picture theatre start? Or when did the other sort of activities start?
Oh, I couldn't tell it the year, forget.
But pre-war it would have been. Obviously it would have been pre-war. The year's not important anyway.
No, I forget what year it started.
That was in the Palais.
That was the Palais.
The Palais Theatre. What were the sort of years like in the early war years in Sale? I mean, what effect did that have?
What were the what?
The early war years around Sale. That
you just went ahead and
Well, George was in the army, wasn't he? He went overseas.
Oh well, I don't know. You just sort of carried on just the same as they did in the last war.
Yeah. I guess Jack's illness was quite short, wasn't it? It sort of must have taken everyone.
Yeah, well, it was. It was short, didn't they? It was only a matter of months, really. I didn't know anything about it. I just put it down. I said it was, of course we knew later that it was, well they said it was kidney trouble, but it was called nephritis.
Yeah.
That was a, well it still is a kidney trouble. And that was what they just called it, nephritis.
What were the circumstances? He just took ill one night, or did it build up over time?
Well, he just wasn't feeling well.
Yeah.
There wasn't pain or anything like that. He didn't suffer with anything.
Because he was a pretty fit sort of a person, wasn't he?
Oh yes, yeah. Had to be to do what he did.
Being in the council, for instance.
Being in the council, in everything that was on in the town.
What sort of things was he in?
Yeah. Well, there was the Masonic Lodge, there was the Rotary Club, there was the Bowling Club, there was St Anne's Grammar School. There'd never have been a St Anne's Grammar School if it hadn't have been for your grandfather.
Why is that?
Because it was just about to go into liquidation through people not paying their subs and bad management and all the rest of it. And he took it over, and it took him about 2 years to get it all straightened out and get it back on its feet again.
You know, that's an enormous amount of energy, but all of those activities indicate an enormous amount of energy going into community activities.
Community efforts.
Yeah.
And the show, he was on the Agricultural Society. He belonged to the Bowling Club.
What did he do in the council?
What did he do?
Yeah, he was a councillor.
He was a councillor.
Yeah.
Yes. He'd have been the mayor the next year had he have lived that long.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't to be.
Yeah. And the lodge?
The lodge. He was past master. The lodge, he was organised there for 21 years.
Was he a musical person, was he?
Very musical. Yeah, that's where Fred gets it from.
Yeah. Yeah. What sort of instruments did he play?
Oh, mostly the piano.
Did he used to play much at
home? The organ, played the organ.
Did you have sort of musical evenings at home?
Oh, no, not really.
I guess all those other activities they take a lot of evenings.
Took a lot of time, and oh no, we'd have a bit of a sing-song sometimes around, but no, not. We didn't have a lot of musical evenings here, not after we were married. And of course, once the pictures started, well, you didn't have time.
Yeah,
because he'd often start the pictures up and get everything fixed up, and then he'd have to tear off to a meeting, and then he'd be back at interval. So I always like to be round at interval of the pictures. No, he was pretty busy.
Yeah. Did you ever work at the theatre, or sort of, get involved in the theatre?
Occasionally,
But really it's...
I take the tickets occasionally, but not very often.
No regular involvement?
No.
No. I guess there are enough other Glovers as part of the brothers and sisters.
Yes, well, there were plenty.
I thought it might have been useful to talk for a minute about my grandfather's parents, because we didn't talk about them the other day.
I don't know much about them. That's what I say. Ruth Bailey'd be the one to talk about them, because I don't know very much about them.
They used to just live across the back from here. Their house was fairly